Hey guys, welcome back. It's a whole new wrestling season officially. This is reaction time. My name's Jacqueline Cordova, and I'm joined by my co-host Ben Visser. Ben, it's finally our time.
It's finally our time. Can you believe this is our third year doing this?
No,
I was thinking about that last week. I was like, this is going to be our third season doing this. And it feels like, for some reason, it feels like last year was our first year. And I don't know why it feels like that, but time flies.
maybe it's because we started like in I think it was January,
It
right?
was. Yep.
So, and I feel like once January hits, it's like lightning speed to March. So, I don't know. This is exciting. Someone brought that up the other day to me. Like, you guys have been doing it for a while now. And I was like, well, yeah, you know what? We have. So, but I'm excited. I feel like I do this every summer to you. I start to get antsy for it to start. And then suddenly I like woke up and it was, oh, like literally the guys just had their first official practice. So it's finally time.
Yeah. It's October. Iowa State wrestles November 5th. They got media day here in a couple weeks. So season's right around the corner and excited to get started. I wrote a column for Cyclone Fanatic last week just about the hype surrounding the season. And this season feels so much different, I think, than previous seasons, just because last year there was a decent amount of hype and like, okay, exciting things are happening. You can see the progression from Kevin Dresser's teams. But this year is just a little bit different. I think part of it is because Iowa State does get Iowa and UNI at home. I think that helps a lot. But you also have David Carr as a senior. You have younger Bastida that's continuing to establish himself in the folk style world. You're bringing the number one ranked recruit in the nation. So just a lot of exciting things for Iowa State and a lot of questions to answer before we get the season started too.
There's definitely, like you said, your column, which was very good, by the way.
Thank you.
I'll be pumping that on social this week since we have a bye week. But I don't want to go into this season like it's an all or nothing season. But in a way, it is simply because David's graduating, which is just so insane to me that we're there, that David's literally, his days are numbered at Hilton Coliseum. So in typical Kevin Dresser fashion, of course, he has a stacked lineup for home duels, which I'm really excited about. Number one, I don't want to drive to Cedar Falls. That drive sucks so bad on the way home. But I'm just excited to have Missouri in town. I'm excited to have Iowa in town. It's going to be definitely fun, I think. We'll definitely have fun duels to cover at home.
We absolutely will. I'm very excited about that as well. And NCAAs are in Kansas City.
3-hour drive.
And I think both of us, you'll get a press pass. I might get a press pass now that I'm writing columns. We'll see about that.
I was going to say, I'll request
but I'll be
one.
there no matter what. Like whether it's in that press row or in the stands, no matter what, I'm going to be there. I'll drag my dad along, so that'll be a lot of fun.
I mean, even if you were there to do work, I feel like you could still be sitting in the stands with your dad.
That too, yeah.
Because you don't have to do as much heavy lifting.
That's true. I don't. I just have to sit back. You'll send me interviews.
I'll send you the transcribed interviews.
Yep.
No, yeah, but I mean, before we get ahead of ourselves to March, we can kick things off and we can start with, David Carr's final season. I'm like not mentally ready for this because I feel like at least as reporters, we've been covering David so intensely his entire career. And now it's like, we're there.
Yeah. No, I get that 100%. Before I did this wrestling stuff, when I was a full-time reporter, I obviously covered the football team and stuff like that. And I had the same feeling with guys like Brock Purdy and Brees Hall. Like, they are staples, and they're the people who turned the program around. It's the same thing with David Carr. Like, David Carr to wrestling is Brock Purdy to football. And the things that David Carr has done for Iowa State throughout his 4 years now to be his fifth, have been, or six, because he had a COVID year and a red shirt.
Yeah.
So he's done 5 years as a red shirt, and then this is going to be a 6 years COVID year. So that in and of itself is wild. The things he's done are fantastic. He was a national champion, first one since Kyvan Gadsden. He's helped Iowa State finish in the top 10 team rankings at NCAAs. Just so many positive things he's done for Iowa State. He's been a number one ranked wrestler for a long, long time. We'll get into Keegan O'Toole and all that fun stuff that's going to come up for this season. So, David Carr is just a special person, first of all. Like, I think I wrote that in my column too, of reasons to be hyped up. Like, David Carr is such a personable person, such a likable person. And then he wrestles an incredibly entertaining style. He's not one of those guys that's going to sit there, and then if he gets on top, he's just going to ride you out for the whole period. He's going to cut you loose, and he's going to take you down again. and he'll throw in a couple turns here or there. He'll get a pinning combination going. So really, really entertaining wrestler, really entertaining guy to be around. So he's the type of person you want representing your program.
Yeah, I think the question we'll be asking ourselves once the season's over is who steps up, who steps up and takes over that leadership position that David has had, since he came into this program. So it's been crazy to just kind of see him in that leadership position when he still had so much to grow in maturity, just as a person, as an athlete. And so I am curious to see who fills in those shoes. But again, conversation for later. I think, and we're going to get into this so many times, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how David handles being covered in his final season, because he hates talking about himself. It's like it's pulling teeth trying to get him to just talk about himself, because he just wants to talk about his teammates. But it's like, no, this is about you. So I'm curious to see how he handles just kind of taking that all in. I know last season, guys like Marcus Coleman would talk about how hard it was to really let himself process what he was going through, the fact that each duel that passed by was his last. So I'm sure David will have similar feelings. I don't see how you don't when you're trying to focus. But yeah, definitely a season that you should get out to Hilton, not trying to be the head advertisers here. But that Missouri one, they're going to end the season with the matchups that we got to witness him have at Big 12s and NCAA, which is very high intense. They're both really incredible athletes, and what a thorn in David's side, ending the season with Keegan O'Toole beating him for the national title. So Davidson doesn't tend to be the guy who gets in front of the cameras and talks a lot of smack, but I feel like you have to. They obviously respect each other. So why not have fun with it and talk smack as you guys try and, again, beat each other out this year? So
I would love to hear David Carr, Mr. Humility, talk a little bit of trash. That would be incredible. And yeah, Keegan O'Toole beat David Carr once last year. David Carr beat him twice, except the problem is Keegan beat him when it mattered most.
Right.
David even pinned Keegan O'Toole in Big 12s. So it's one of those things where, yeah, Keegan won, but it's not this insurmountable thing that can't be beat. David's beat him. And David has the skills and abilities and athleticism and mindset. That's the thing that I think I overlook a lot is David's mindset. He has the mindset to go out there and, hey, he's going to get the job done. So they're going to wrestle probably 3 times again this year.
I was going to say, they're literally going to wrestle again three-ish weeks back to back, essentially.
Yeah, 3 times within a month, essentially. Yeah.
Which is just, who else is doing that?
Probably. We're assuming health, right? I think that's the biggest thing from these two, maybe or maybe not seeing each other 3 times. But if both are healthy, they're going to see each other 3 times, I think. I think that's, you don't want to say foregone conclusion. Anything can happen. You can wrestle a bad match and lose early in the rounds at NCAAs. We've seen that from David Carr before. I don't think that's going to happen now. But it is a thing. But again, assuming health, you can almost pencil that one in.
I feel like David's going to be so entertaining because it always takes me back to Kai Van Gadsden talking about wrestling free. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's your final season. It's your final show. Just let loose, let it all out there. And we see David wrestle. He's very good at being in the right position, in the right spots, at the right time. And I'm just excited to see what he changes, because he always talks about wanting to be more entertaining, wanting to show off and give us new things to show just how entertaining he is. So I think, as always, he's going to be a staple guy in the lineup and one you should look forward to in probably all duels.
Do you remember last year who said that David Carr asked everybody a piece of advice? Like, I forget, it might have been Caleb Fusely or Feasley. I still don't know how to pronounce his last name. Apologies, Caleb. But he stepped in at 125 and we asked about David Carr. I think this was it. And he's like, he asked everybody everything. Like, it's not just his coaching that he's asking advice from. Like, I think it was Caleb. He's like, I do this little 2-on-1 technique. And David saw that and he asked me how I did that. So for a guy like David Carr to ask, at the time, a walk-on, a technique, just shows how much David is, A, again, his humility. He is incredibly humble. But B, how much he's willing to learn. And he's not going to, he'll take information from anywhere. So just that mindset of always wanting to learn, I think, is going to be and has been very successful for him.
Well, and also just, again, it goes back to the type of leader he is, that he can go to someone like Caleb and ask questions, because that's good. That's what you should do. And I know we talk a lot about wrestlers in general as a whole. You know, they have big egos, and they should. It's wrestling. You should definitely encourage it. But there's just also something, I think, important in looking at someone like David Carr, who values his team feedback and what they can teach him. So it's going to be a special and yet honestly sad. I get sad. I get very attached just being around, you know, the same guys for so many years, and you watch them go through the highs and lows, and then suddenly they're out the door. So I'm excited. David's definitely one that, I mean, everyone's always excited for David. So, but now we have to count him down.
Yep.
Which sucks.
Match by match.
But thankfully, Iowa State is not short of other guys to watch for or storylines to follow this season. Not only do we have David Carr, but 149.
That's a wait.
Iowa State has wrestle-offs coming up, and Ben and I were going through the roster trying to see, all right, which weights are the ones that we're very invested in, who's going to be going up against who. Well, at 149, we have Paniro Johnson, Casey Swiderski, and Anthony Echemendia, who is officially a member of the team.
Transfer from Ohio State.
Yep, he had originally committed to Iowa State and then just, changed his mind. That happens. But he's back, and he is a competitive guy. So now we have these three very different,
I think they're all very different.
I was going to say they're all different, but they're all powerhouses in their own way. And it's going to be an interesting one. Ben, hit me with your thoughts on that weight.
My thoughts are, I can't believe all three of them are at 149. Talking to the coaches last year, you kind of knew that this was Swiderski's last year at 141. It was a tough weight cut. I get that. So him moving up to 49. But I kind of expected Anthony Echemendia, once it was official that he was at Iowa State, would be at 141, because that's who he wrestled at Ohio State when he was there. So because you're the one that told me, you was like, hey, Anthony Echemendia is at 140. I was like, what's happening? So I looked at the roster and it's like, oh my gosh. Okay, so this is going to be a lot to parse through. And then obviously there is the Paniro Johnson situation where he was one of the guys hit in the gambling probe. And according to the NCAA rules right now, he would be cleared to wrestle. He does still have a legal case out against him. He has a class 4 felony, class 5, class 4, one of those two, felony for identity theft and of over $1,500 or something like that. So he does have a legal thing to figure out, but I'm wondering, and this would be a question for Kevin Dresser, how that affects his eligibility. Because if he's cleared by the NCAA, would he not be cleared to wrestle? So that's going to be an interesting thing to figure out, as well as I thought that he could probably, so in college wrestling, you can wrestle in 5 matches and retain your red shirt as long as you're a freshman. So unfortunately, I think that counts out Paniro, because I thought that's what happen is he could wrestle 5 matches, Swiderski could wrestle 5 matches, see what that all looks like, and then one of them would redshirt. That's what I originally thought would happen. But now that I found out that that only applies to freshmen, Kevin Dresser kind of has to make that decision pretty early on. Right. I think Anthony Echemendia has redshirted, so that's kind of regardless. He could wrestle, he could not wrestle. It's not going to impact how long he has left at Iowa State. But for Swiderski and Paniro, that's a decision that I think you have to make preseason. So that's tough. And like Jackie said, they wrestle such different styles. And if you would have asked me in February who I thought would win the weight and the one I want to win the weight, I would have said Paniro, because the guy won a Big 12 championship. He was more consistent all year. He looked really, really good. And Swiderski had a lot of up and downs. And I think he went on a 6-match losing streak during the regular season. And then he figured it out in the postseason. And he almost became an All-American. He's 1 match away from becoming an All-American. So right now, if you were to ask me, it's like, okay, well, probably Swiderski. So we'll see which one's more consistent this year, right? They've had an off-season to work. They had a whole season to understand college wrestling. Neither one was good on top last year. Did one of them develop a ride? Did one of them develop some turns? So leave it to the coaching staff. Jackie and I can give our thoughts on it from outside perspective, but this is one that I do not envy Kevin Dresser, Brett Metcalf, and Derek St. John, because they have a tough decision to make.
Yeah, and like you said, they're just so different. And My hesitations with Anthony Echemendia are that he hasn't wrestled in a live match since before COVID, you said?
During COVID,
During
2020.
COVID.
Yep.
And he only wrestled 5 times before he got injured. So that one kind of, I'm like, oh,
It's
that's
tough.
that's hard.
Yep.
And then, yeah, like you said, Pinheiro and Casey were just so different. And they were the young guys, they were the freshmen. So we compared them a lot, even though they literally were so different. And it's just one of those where I think you either look at it and think, well, Casey stepped up when it mattered, right, in the postseason. But then you also look at all the work that Pinheiro put in during the regular season. And, he won a Big 12 title. It's just, yeah, I agree with you. And I'm on the same that I lean Casey Swiderski right now, just based off of what we know from the end of last season. Who knows what they're going to look like in the wrestle-offs, assuming I would hope that we would see them in the wrestle-offs.
I would hope so.
I am so curious how they match up. I'm so curious how Anthony Echemendia matches up with these two guys. So I think that'll be probably like the most interesting wrestle-off, and see how they decide to balance it with the red shirt rules. And yeah, it's a big question mark for me. So, but like we said, plenty of things to look at. Not only 149, but Iowa State had some good guys come in during the off season. We have Cody Chittum and Will Feldkamp. I have to work on my pronunciation on that one. Obviously, Cody Chittum has been extremely hyped. I'm excited to see him compete. Everything that I've heard from the postseason is that he seems like a pretty focused guy. He seems more quiet at some of these social events they've been doing. Which makes me think he's just gonna be the like wrestler, that's like very moody and dark and just comes in and handles his business. I'm very excited for this, especially with how much Iowa State has struggled to fill that weight. Once David bumped up to 165, 157 became the new 165 as far as there just has not been a guy who consistently steps up and really takes ownership of it, and that problem has been solved. So
it has. I think, like Jackie said, the hype around Cody Chittum is there. I mean, this is a guy who, he gray-shirted last year, similar to Pinheiro Johnson. He gray-shirted at Iowa, of all places. He's at Iowa State now, though, so we forgive him. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where he wrestled in senior-level events last year. He placed in senior-level events last year, and the hype around him is real. David Carr, for reference, was ranked number 2 in his class behind Gable Stevenson. Now, I'm not saying Cody Chittum turns into Gable or David Carr, but the potential is there.
Right, like comparing them freshman to freshman.
Yep. And it's one of those things where David took a few losses his freshman year. Like, oh, those are weird losses. Gable Stevenson lost a couple times as a freshman. So Cody Chittum is not going to come out here and go, he's not going to be Kelsey Anderson. Let's set that expectation right now. He's not going to go undefeated all 4 years. He's not going to go undefeated his freshman year, probably. But it's one of those guys to where the expectation, similar to Pinheiro and Casey last year, is at minimum NCAAs and compete for an All-American spot. And if you really peak, maybe you contend for a national championship. But Cody Chittum is very, very exciting. I'm trying to see who is ranked number 1 at 157 right now in the preseason rankings. Levi Haynes of Penn State, last year's true freshman, and I also think number 1 ranked recruit. So that could be very entertaining to see last year's freshman phenom, and potentially this year's freshman phenom. So apparently Iowa got Jared Franick now, which I just realized.
What?
Yeah, he's ranked number 2.
When did that happen?
I don't know.
All right.
But this is new information to me. So that's interesting. We'll see how that works.
I was going to say processing that in real time.
Yeah. I like Cody Chittum in that matchup. I'll say that.
Oh, absolutely. Got to keep thinking the Iowa State duel can never be anything but dramatic.
It's going to be dramatic this year. We'll get to that when we get to that. But that dual meet, if you don't have a ticket now, if you don't have season tickets, start thinking about getting tickets for that Iowa State dual meet. That's going to be electric. And like I said in my column, I'm expecting a sellout for that. I don't see any reason why there aren't 14,354 people in there. Like,
It
that should be a
needs-
sellout, and it should be
Yes.
raucous. And ideally, 70-30 Iowa State fans, because in the past, it's been like 50-50 at best. So, no, I want to see Iowa State fans show up for that one.
I definitely want to leave that duel the same way I left Iowa City last year. Obviously, I'm talking not feeling anything about the score, strictly speaking, environment wise. I want to have that same type of feeling because
Yeah, Carver Hawkeye is electric. As much as we might not like Iowa,
is.
Carver Hawkeye is insane for wrestling. If you haven't been out to Carver Hawkeye before, do it.
yes, but like you said, we'll also, again, side note, the scheduling. We have that one, the Saturday. Is it the Saturday or Sunday? It's the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So we get it earlier in the season because usually it's in December.
It's usually in December, I think.
Yeah. So we get it a lot sooner too. That'll be an interesting one with it being a holiday weekend. But anyways, we'll get there when we get there. Will Feldkamp. He was an NCAA qualifier, 184, and he placed 7th, and he alone scored 10.5 team points, it says.
Yep. And his only 2 losses last year to Marcus Coleman and Aaron Brooks. So if those are your only 2 losses, those are 2 pretty good losses. Aaron Brooks obviously won the national championship. Marcus Coleman was obviously a 2-time All-American for Iowa State. So replacing an All-American with an All-American is a welcome sight, because it's one of those things where Iowa State brought in Tate Noctiborn, who I thought might be in the Cody Chittum class of, all right, true freshman, see what we can do. But when you bring in Will Feldkamp, you get a redshirt Noctiborn, which I think is a very good move, especially at those upper weights, because if you're lower weight, it's one of those things where, like, okay, these guys aren't huge, but when you're in upper weight, it's like, okay, you're wrestling men now. Like, you have to be up for it physically, and I think I like the idea of redshirting, especially at those upper weights. So I like that Noctiborn's redshirting. I like that Will Feldkamp's going to step in there as a returning All-American and put some guys in their back, because he is known for pinning. He had, I think, like 10 pins last year. What do you got?
It says 3rd in NCAA Division I last season with 14 pins.
14. Oof.
I love pinners.
Me too.
It just
I haven't had one in a while. Have
no. And it's like David's fine, he racks up the score. You love to see him tech fall. Everybody's excited when he does it before the 3rd period even starts.
Yeah.
But just love a good pin. That's why I loved Marcus.
Yeah.
Marcus would just go on these pinning sprees. No, I think I feel like what Dresser had been needing to do in the off season and in the recruiting, I think he did that. He did that this off season.
Yep. Yeah, he brought in some really high level recruits. Like Sam Schuyler was a great transfer for Iowa State in the long run. When it first happened, it's like, oh, that's an interesting thing. And then when he stepped on the mat, he was fine, but he was not an All-American caliber wrestler. He turned into a near All-American caliber wrestler, and he turned into a heavyweight staple for Iowa State, and he did very, very good things for the Cyclones. But having a returning All-American helps a lot. That's a different level of transfer than Sam Schuyler, who I'm not taking anything away from him. He did wonderful at Iowa State, but Will Feldkamp should be in a different class.
Which, I mean, we'll be seeing Sam on the coaching side now.
Yep.
So he can help develop guys the same way he was developed. But I mean, I guess that's a good segue.
Very good.
Younger Bastida, the new Iowa State heavyweight. Heavyweights are my favorite weight class. Younger Bastida has been your favorite wrestler.
Yes.
You have not been shy.
Nope.
Younger is huge.
He's massive.
If you haven't seen him, go look up his Instagram because he's massive. What Ben Durbin is doing with him, he's huge. At first I was like, oh, he's going to bump up. Like I'm imagining, how lean he looked at the end of the season. No, he's huge. He definitely looks comfortable at the weight. But I'm excited to see how he matches up. 285 is still difficult. Cassiope's clearly back since the rule changes with the gambling. So give me your thoughts on Younger.
Yeah, as the leader of the Younger Bastida fan club and the person who needs to push his agenda, I love the move. When he wrestled freestyle in Cuba, he wrestled at 97 kilograms, which is 213 pounds. So he was cutting just from that weight, which he was already cutting to, he's cutting 213, then he cut another, 16 pounds. So he was cutting a lot of weight. And I think, like Jackie said, he was looking lean. And I don't know if that was a good lean necessarily. Like, this is a guy who has a lot of horsepower behind him. And you have a lot of horsepower behind you. You want to feel good. And I think this move to heavyweight is going to make him feel really, really good. You see a guy like Greg Kirkfleet at Penn State, and I think that is Younger's ceiling to me. Greg Kirkfleet is ranked number 1 right now, and I know I went on a little bit of a crusade last year of rank Younger Bastida number 1, and he was a takedown away from doing it, but unfortunately lost to Pitts, I think Paul Biancardi. So that was disappointing. Then season a little bit fell apart. Whether that was due to injury or whatnot is to be determined, but don't know that we'll ever find that one out. So I love the move to heavyweight for Bastida. He's so athletic, and like Jackie said, he's filled out really, really well. He is huge, but he's not a bad kind of huge. He's not that's a heavyweight, like, from 1990 huge. This is the new school heavyweight of being super lean. I think he's probably 240 right now. Last time we talked to Dresser, I think his goal is to be 245. Pick your favorite middle linebacker, and that's what Younger Bastida looks like right now. Like, I firmly believe that if Younger Bastida had been born in America, he would be playing linebacker at the Division I level right now. So I love that he's wrestling. Shout out to Cuba for not having football, but Younger Bastida is a phenomenal athlete, and I think I like his move to heavyweight. Now, he's going to struggle with some heavyweights, right? Like Wyatt Hendrickson at Air Force. He's going to struggle with him because Wyatt is probably 6'5", 6'6", and he's probably close to the full 285. So, and he's really good on top, which Younger's obviously his worst position is on bottom. So if Younger unfortunately goes under Wyatt, I think that gets to be a really long match for Younger. But if he stays on his feet, stays neutral, I can see Younger winning that type of match, but it is a bad matchup for him. Same with the Zach Elam. Obviously, Rocky Elam and Younger had a great rivalry that Rocky got the better of these last 2 or 3 matches. Zach's obviously his older brother, so that's going to be a situation again where can you figure out the Elams? They're both very good on top. So if Younger can stay out of that position, I like what he can do. It's just going to be, can he do that? And that's going to be a thing to watch this season.
Well, and the good thing for Younger is that Wyatt Hendrickson and Zach Elam are in the Big 12. So he'll get to feel them out before he does it in March. And I don't know, like you said, the weight that he's put on and the muscle that he has more room to have now, I really hope that it just like is a 180 from what we saw at the end of the season. Cause like the more we've like discussed it, the more I look back and I think about what he looked like in person, and he just didn't look like he felt well. Mm-hmm. I don't have a clear answer for what was going on, but he just like did not look well. And from what we've seen from what the program puts out, posts that Younger has shared from training, I mean, he looks good. Mm-hmm. So I'm very excited. Like you touched on, his athleticism. I love college heavyweights because that's, these guys are way more athletic than high schoolers. Mm-hmm. But Younger's just like on a different level.
Yes, he is.
And that's going to be so exciting. And just knowing, his ego and the banter that him and Sam Schuyler have had about, Sam telling him like, oh, heavyweights don't turn, and Younger saying like, oh, I will be. Like those types of things, I'm excited to see him put on a show. And I hope that we get a whole different Younger from the Younger we saw just in Tulsa in March, because that wasn't fun. It's not fun to watch Younger lose.
No, he's too entertaining to watch lose. And when he loses, it's because he gets down on bottom and he can't get out. So it's not fun. I want to see him on his feet. And just to drive home the point of why I think this is a really good move for Younger to move to heavyweight. Last year, I think it was during the collegiate duels, when Younger was wrestling at 197, Sam Schuyler had a little bit of a shoulder issue, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And wrestling at 197, Younger bumped up to heavyweight while still weighing 197 because you have to still weigh in at the weight so you you can still wrestle at the weight the rest of the season. So he weighs in at 197, 200 pounds, whatever it is. And then he wrestles Luis Fernandez from Cornell, who was ranked top 15 last year, and he's ranked number 11 this year, and he beats him. So just that alone, while giving up a lot of weight, Younger's proven that he can handle this task wrestling heavyweight. So I think at minimum, Younger Bastida is an All-American this year. At maximum, I'd like to see him compete for a national title.
I would assume that Younger himself, I mean, again, these guys have a lot of ego. Younger is a very emotionally explosive guy. We've seen what he can do on the mat, how he carries himself when, he spiked the headgear. Yes. He gets so amped up in the Iowa duel, and there's just no way he walks out of last season and doesn't come into this one just ready to rip heads off. So I'm excited for that. But overall, give me a take of what you're hoping to either learn about the team on media day or just what you're hoping to get out of this season that has nothing to do with David Carr or younger Bastida.
Yes, that's two very good caveats. I remember in Dresser's first or second year during media day, he said that he always had a good feeling about what his team would do and where it would finish. And his first and second year, he's like, I don't know, I just got here, and these guys have been a roller coaster. And Iowa State, in fairness to him, was not that good when he first got here. So I'm interested to see now that he's been around these guys for 5-6 years, some of them, what his expectations are, what he thinks can happen with this group. Because I know what I think. I think Iowa State can probably be a top 3 team. I think they, I don't know, should might not be the right word, but they absolutely, there should be an expectation there that compete for a team trophy and ideally earn a team trophy. Be a top 4 team at NCAAs. I could see top 3 finish. Now, Iowa's getting some of their good guys back with these gambling rule changes, so that's going to be another tough one. But with the lineup that Iowa State has, I think a trophy finish is well in sight, and I'd like to see what Kevin Dresser is going to put out there as far as his expectations and what he thinks his team can achieve. And then beyond that, what do some of these other weights look like? So Iowa State in the past has always had a hole, right? Whether it be 157, 165, 125 some years, 133 some years. They've always had these holes. This year, I think I could make a pretty strong argument that Iowa State doesn't have a hole necessarily.
Yeah.
So I want to see what some of these weights like 125, 33, 74. I want to see what those weights look like. 97 this year. What does not having a hole look like? What does having a top 15 ideally wrestler do for an Iowa State team that is already very good in duels? What can that do in a tournament setting? And can those guys turn it on at the right time in March? So those are probably the 2 biggest things that I'm looking for when media day rolls around.
I feel like expectations are definitely higher, and they should be. I feel like in past seasons, I remember having conversations with like Derek St. John where he was like, yeah, we did really well in that one, but it was at the same time kind of we just got lucky. Or it was like, oh yeah, XYZ, like these specific weights are going to do really well, but these other ones were probably not going to do that great. So you'd go into it, hoping younger got a tech fall, David got a tech fall. There was a lot of pressure on Marcus Coleman, younger Bastida, David Carr, Sam Schuyler to score a lot of bonus points to make up for those holes. And like you said, I just don't think we're having the same conversation this season. So it's exciting because this is what you work for, right? This is what Kevin Dresser wanted. And David Carr's been asking for a team title. He's been asking to be able to have a trophy with his team. This is it.
Yep, Big 12 champion as well. Need to get that one off the road. Iowa State can't let a school that's not in the Big 12 win the Big 12 title. That just can't happen. And really, Iowa State's the only one that can prevent it at this point. Oklahoma State's not what they were. Oklahoma's not in the Big 12 anymore, and they're not going to compete for it either. You can't let a school that's not in the Big 12 win the Big 12 title. So I need Iowa State to go out there and get the job done.
No pressure at all from Bud. Julian Broderson.
Yes.
We haven't talked about him. He's huge too.
He's massive.
He is at 197. He is looking great. I really like him just because I feel like Metcalf talked a lot about how hard he worked all summer last year and just how much extra training and commitment he put in to be better. Because he's not the guy who, he's not the David Carr who's coming in with like all of these accolades and just natural, very, very good talent.
Yep.
And so Julian's worked extra hard for it. And I just hope he can see that payout. And I hope this bump in weight gives him an extra edge. But like I said, go look at his pictures too.
Yeah.
He's massive.
And I think it's a similar thing to younger, to where when you're cutting that much weight, like if his natural weight's closer to 200 pounds and you're cutting down to 174, that's tough.
Yeah.
So I like, and Kevin Dresser said this too. Kevin Dresser said he's tried to make guys go down in weight, but it's almost always exploded in his face. And that kind of happened with Younger last year. Younger did not finish the season strong. And Younger wanted to be at heavyweight last year, but obviously Sam Schuyler existed. So for the betterment of the team, Younger cut weight. Didn't work out great for him. I'm assuming Julian Broderson's cut quite a few pounds in recent years. If 197 is closer to his more natural weight, I want to see what that can bring, because there was times last year it's like, he had ability, but it wasn't always there all the time. When you're cutting a bunch of weight, it gets tough to be there all the time. When you're at a more natural weight, you can be more consistent. So that's going to be a fun weight to watch too, just in a little bit different lens.
It always makes me think of Ian Parker deciding to bump up, and that was clearly not. This is the opposite effect, right? This is a guy who did not need to bump up.
No.
And it just didn't work. It just didn't work. So I think, this is going to be a fun team. It's one of those where we're putting pressure on them and they're probably putting on 100 times more pressure on themselves. 100%. So it's going to be a really good season. I'm excited. Like, I think this might be my favorite season I cover. I'm convinced. I'm already calling
Assuming no injuries.
Yeah,
it should be.
Knock on every piece of wood in this studio. No, I'm excited. Do you have any final thoughts?
Let's roll out the mats and get it going.
Yeah, can we get to, what is the date for the first official one? November 12th.
November 12th at Cleveland State.
No, this is the one in Ames. I'm talking first duel in Ames.
Oh, first duel in Ames. Got it. Okay, I thought you were talking about first actual duel.
No, Ben and I are definitely going to do a more like weight by weight, duel by duel kind of preview before the season officially starts. But it officially starts on November 5th. Again, typical Kevin Dresser. They're going to wrestle at David's High School.
Spoiler alert, that will be my column for the week. Because Kevin Dresser has a history of doing this. He did it with Jarrett Dagan going out to Montana, and I love that he does it for the guys. So
it's just like, Dresser's an older, wiser coach. He can talk his smack, a little rough around the edges, but then he does something like let his seniors get this like little feel good moment. It's just so kind.
A little homecoming.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm excited. Like I said, Ben and I will be here again all season, talking away. Ben's writing this season, which is exciting.
Yep. Getting back in the writer's seat.
So is this what you thought when you hung it up at the Gazette?
Not at all. I didn't think I'd written my last article. I thought I might do some freelance stuff for the Gazette. And they've offered, and interestingly, I've always been busy. So this is going to be a fun opportunity. Columns are not something that I've done traditionally at all.
No.
So this is a different lane for me. So give me a little bit of patience and grace as I get my feet wet in the column writing business, because it is very, very different than beat writing. And when I was a beat writer, I was not one to let my opinion in much at all. So having that resource available is going to be something that I'm going to have to navigate, but should be fun though.
Yeah, I feel like that's where I struggle. It's like I want to make sure to cover my bases as a beat writer, and I feel like I pretty consistently stay unbiased in my writing, and I never want to write in a way that shows otherwise. But I would like to be able to do more features. That's my goal for this season, is write more features. I want people to know these guys from David Carr to whoever gets the 125 spot. I don't know. I'll just go with 125 since we don't really know what's going to happen there.
Nope. Perriman or Terrakina probably. So,
no, it'll be a good season. Hope you guys continue to tune in as we continue to be here. So I don't know when our next episode will come out, but Media Day's on Halloween. So expect a lot of content to come your way around the holiday. So as always, shout out to our sponsor, Fareway, who continues to be our fierce, loyal sponsors here at Reaction Time. So thanks for tuning in, guys.